Welcome back, or welcome to my channel. My name is Ren and I make videos a couple of times a week about books and pop culture, and today I want to talk about the most popular book on the internet right now. Like, everyone is talking about this book. I cannot go on Instagram, on YouTube or on TikTok without someone talking about this book, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I sort of got to a point where I couldn't necessarily keep up with all of the books that were like the most popular book going around at that period of time. I have been in and out of the hospital. I've been dealing with loads of stuff. My mental health hasn't been great. So I really took a step back from the popular books on the internet. But I am slowly coming out of my cave. I'm not doing just fine just yet, but I'm getting better and I'm slowly emerging from a cave with the help of a therapist, and I'm sort of trying to see what's going on. I've been making book videos on this internet for like a decade now, so it's been a long time. So everyone was talking about Fourth Wing, and like I said, it's been a while since I saw a book everyone was talking about. I was like, I'm gonna get that right now. But I did get it. I went to Waterstones, asked where it was, and it had its own table because it's been so big. And I was like, I'm gonna read this book. I'm gonna see what this book is all about and what's going on. All I knew is that it had dragons in it. And I saw a couple of booktube videos of people saying that it wasn't the best, and I was like, oh no, like, is this gonna be a Colleen Hoover situation where everyone's talking about a book and then I find out that the author of this book is like awful and these books promote like terrible things? So I was like, oh, have I made a mistake in buying this book? So I was gonna vlog it. I was gonna vlog reading it, and I actually I made a little annotation chart. I would make my annotations and make my comments, and then I just had so much fun reading this book that I got it on Audible with a credit, so that when I would go on walks and run errands I could listen to it. And then I bought it on my Kindle because sometimes my wrists are so painful that physical books are really hard, and I have the Kindle Oasis, which is really light. So I was like, I don't want to stop reading this book. So I bought it on like every possible device that I could, so that I could just read this book. Now, I'm not going to say that it's like the best written book that I've ever read. Like, there are definitely elements of the writing which I thought did verge on repetitive and overly descriptive in some areas. There were, like I said, repetitive kind of comes into that, I guess. If it's overly descriptive, there were times where the same word was used a couple of times in the same paragraph, and there were periods of time where we already knew something and it was explained again, but also periods of time where I felt as if so much was happening in the book that time passed quite quickly. There would be times where something would be happening and then Violet would be like, and then it was January, and you're like, okay, and you sort of get a tiny rundown of what happened in the time that's jumped, but it's just like a very quick summary. And I understand that obviously this is supposed to be an entire like academic year in the Writer Academy, so I understand why that was done, and I guess it's kind of similar to like school books and boarding school books and stuff, but sometimes I felt like the jump was a little bit jarring, and then I was like, oh, okay, it's like an entirely different, it's like 3 months later, you know. So those are kind of like my qualms with it. But I saw people being like, it's written like a fan fiction. I never really understood why that's an insult. There are some very questionable fan fictions on Wattpad. There are some which I wish I'd never read. For those that are old enough to remember fics such as The Hat fic. I'm sorry. But there are fics like that where, why? Just why? But overall, fanfiction is genuinely really good. And for someone to have a platform where they can express their creativity and explore a part of a world which people love so much. Like, there's a reason why people read fan fiction. There's a reason why it's still so heavily written and read and loved. And I don't think that saying something is written like a fan fiction should be used as an insult. There are some fan fictions that are novel length, that are like absolutely Goliath stories that are 10 times better than some novels I've read, because they are beautifully written. There are fan fictions that have made me cry. There are fan fictions that have made me lose sleep. There are fan fictions that I genuinely still think about and reread to this day because they are so good. So I am of the opinion that I don't think saying it's written like a fan fiction is a bad thing, and I think it was probably written like a fan fiction. I would agree with that as a statement, but I wouldn't use it in a negative context. I think that sums it up, but in a good, fun way. It's not a perfect book. It's not the best book in the world, in my opinion, but I had so much fun reading it and I loved it, and I'm so excited for the second one. The big thing that I really, really, really want to talk about in this book is the disability representation and Violet's struggle with her joints and illness, because I personally think, as someone who is chronically ill, who has awful joints, who uses a walking stick, it was brilliant. It was actually one of the most realistic examples of this that I have seen in a book in a really long time. And the thing that I loved so much about this was the reality that once Violet started to train and get stronger and do more exercise, she got stronger, but it didn't cure her. And that's what was really good. She would withstand a little bit more, but she still had to wrap her joints. She still had to adapt certain things. Even like she didn't fall off Terran as much, but eventually she still needed a saddle because there was no way she was like actually going to be able to stay on. So it was a really realistic thing of showing that there are ways that some people that deal with specific illnesses and deal with weaker joints, that she, you know, that was able to happen. You know, it was able to be strengthened, but she still had some limits. I also really liked that she was the one that was able to be like, these are my limits, and she did call people out when they tried to make those limits for her and didn't just kind of accept that they'd made it. And I really liked that, and I just thought it was really realistic. You know, I have joint hypermobility syndrome, and mine's quite bad. Like, my joints are pretty messed up. I had my shoulder repaired last year and they're weak. Like, my joints are weak, but I can strengthen them, but I still have to wrap them. I still have to be careful to make sure they don't dislocate. Like, and I really related to how Violet's, how she had to adapt. I really related to that, and I thought that it was done really well, and I thought that how she approached it was done really well. I also really loved that there were really casual, like there was casual deafness, not just thrown in. It felt completely natural, and Violet kind of just would, like, the difference between signing and speaking was done very well. It didn't like overly be like, and then she signed that. Like, it was done in a really natural way because she was just communicating. You were told that there was a difference, but it was shown in the same way, which I really liked, and thought that was a really good way to represent. I'm also deaf, so I thought that was done really well. I liked that the queer elements were the same. There's some stories where coming out is really important and has a really good exploration, but I feel like this was a book where it was just mentioned and it was just a thing, and it didn't need that coming out moment, which I thought was really good. I loved that part of it probably the most. I thought that it was just a really realistic and natural way to explore illness and disability and how that impacts us and how we can adapt our lives so that we're still able to do things that we want to do. I also, so it's like, oh, is this what kind of love-hate relationship is this going to be? Because it was very obvious that the first time we met Xaden, that was that's what was going to happen. I actually did enjoy that it wasn't like overtly toxic. A lot of it was Violet's perception of Xaden, whereas actually he didn't really do much. He just kind of said a few things to her before they like properly sort of knew each other. He was just a bit of an asshole. But it was never in a way where in some books it can kind of come across as quite toxic. It was actually a good, I don't really like you, but then I get to know you and you're better than I thought you were kind of situation. I understand why he kept some things from her. I can understand why he kept her at arm's length because of her family and her mum and stuff. But I think there was a time where he could have shared. But I do also sort of understand it. And I think that was a good part of it because it was a complicated situation. And I could understand based on who her mum is why he didn't immediately tell her things. It just felt like it was a natural discussion and a natural kind of the way that they fell into each other and the way that their relationship grew was done well. And I also felt like the mind reading thing was also done in a respectful way because Xaden was respectful with it before she could do it back. Like it was done. I thought it was done well. I thought that I didn't feel like their relationship felt forced. I didn't feel like their relationship felt quick. I felt like it was a delicate situation and that was portrayed and it was done well, I think. Obviously, I cannot talk about this book without talking about the dragons. I saw some people like kind of laughing at it and saying that it was like silly. Which, like, fair enough if you think that it, like, obviously it's everyone's opinion, and if people don't enjoy the way that the dragons are represented in this, then that's fair enough. I actually thought it was kind of cool. I had a lot of fun with it, because I feel like if dragons were real, if I could look out of my window and there were just dragons flying about, they would absolutely make the rules. And if there was a way that they could communicate, dragons are magic. So if they have magic and there's a way they can communicate and they are able to kind of bond with riders and make these decisions, I feel like dragons would absolutely make the rules, like, and we wouldn't stand a chance. Like, I feel like I would, if dragons were real, I would absolutely listen to the dragons more than I'd probably listen to other humans, because I think I'd be more scared of the dragons. They can breathe fire and they're massive. The mating thing was a bit weird. That was like the one thing where I was like, okay, just a bit odd, and not even that she could tell that's what was happening, but the way that it then made her want to go and sleep with someone. That was like a little bit strange. So it was like the only part where I was like, oh, I don't like this connection. But I did kind of like the idea of a bond and being able to bond with them and how they can choose their people. And it was very obvious that she was going to be the outlier of the situation, whether or not it was a massive dragon that chose her, or in this case a massive dragon and then a secondary dragon. So like it was obvious that Violet was going to be the outlier in a situation. Thought that Ardana was gonna choose her and then prove that Ardana was actually badass. I didn't expect there to be this. I didn't expect Ten to be there. So it was kind of cool, and I loved Ardana. Like, I thought her ability was really cool, and she was really sweet. I really liked her portrayal, especially in the audiobook. It was really nice, and I liked that she was kind of just like, and me, and she was little and people underestimated her, but she was able to prove them wrong, which is kind of what happened with Violet as well. People made a lot of assumptions about Violet because she was ill, and I liked that Violet was able to show that, that it was written in that she showed that she definitely struggled because of that, but it didn't mean that she couldn't do it. But yeah, I enjoyed the dragon part of things. I thought it was fun, and a little bit different, like being able to communicate and have that like bond with them. It was very violent. I wasn't expecting, like, everyone just died. Like, everyone, when the professor went and just killed that guy because his ability was mind reading was just wild. Like, there was so many parts of this book that was just absolutely brutal. I wasn't expecting it to be as brutal as it was, and it took me off guard in a lot of instances. And I did feel like sometimes it felt a little bit like to make a point, and sometimes I don't know if that part was completely necessary, and I would have liked there to be, I don't know, it felt very extreme to kind of be like, I stand apart from other book, like, you know, like it was very violent. And I also thought that Xaden calling Violet violence was, it got a little bit cringe sometimes, more just repetitive, like he'd say it in like the same sentence multiple times. But yeah, it surprised me how kind of brutal it was. I wasn't expecting it to be as brutal as it was so quickly, but then I think you kind of get used to it and get used to the rules of the academy, which are to kill. I wasn't also fully expecting they are the bad people, let's look at the bad things they've done so fast. When Violet was seeing that they weren't reporting on things that were happening in battles that were happening, and they weren't telling the truth in some of the sessions, it was clear that there were things that were being hidden. And so yeah, so I'm interested to see how that goes. I'm interested to see at which point Brennan knew that, and why Brennan, like what made him think that he couldn't talk to her. Like, obviously his mum I understand, but you know, what part, where and when did Xaden tell him Violet was in the Rider Squad? And I'm interested to see more of his perspective and to see more of what he thinks about the whole thing, because I feel like obviously Violet's very pissed at Xaden at the moment, so I feel like Brennan's someone that she's going to listen to. So I'm very interested to see where it goes, and I like the kind of the way the conflict's been created. I enjoyed it. I had fun. Like, I haven't had this much fun reading a book in so long. I genuinely loved reading it. I didn't want to put it down sometimes. Like, I said, I bought it on across all mediums so that I could ensure that I was listening to it as much as possible, and I really, really enjoyed it. I had fun. I think that sometimes we can just enjoy books, we can just have fun. I'm excited for, I think it's called Iron Flame is the next one, so I'm excited for that. It's going to be a 5-book series I've read, so that's quite a lot. It was hard when you have been there since book 1, because then you're like, I've got a long time to wait. It's made me have this like zest for fantasy, which I haven't had in a while, so it's quite nice actually to be on a bit of a fantasy kick. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on Fourth Wing. Let me know in the comment section below. If you want to come hang out with me on other social medias, that will be all in the description, as well as my podcast, which is the Stranger Things podcast. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're doing really, 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 really well, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.